On a cold January night, 4,000 souls floated on a city of steel, unaware that destiny had already written a different story for them. The year was 2012. The place was the sparkling Mediterranean Sea, just off the coast of Italy. A massive cruise ship, one of the largest ever built, glided through the dark waters like a floating palace. Her name was Costa Concordia. She was a marvel of human engineering, 17 decks high, almost 300 meters long. She carried restaurants, theaters, swimming pools, and thousands of dreams. Families celebrated anniversaries, couples danced under crystal chandeliers, children laughed in colorful play areas. Elderly passengers watched the stars from private balconies. Everyone believed they were safe. Everyone believed nothing could touch them. After all, they were aboard an unsinkable giant. But the sea has secrets. And that night, it was about to reveal one of the most terrifying truths of our time. The captain of this mighty vessel was a man of experience. He had sailed these waters many times before. He knew every island, every coastline, every hidden rock beneath the waves. Or so he thought. On this particular night, he made a decision that would change everything. He ordered the ship to sail closer to the island of Giglio, much closer than safety allowed. Some say it was pride. Some say it was a gesture to impress someone on shore. Others whisper it was simply fate pulling the strings of human weakness. Whatever the reason, the captain steered his floating city toward shallow waters where giants were never meant to go. The passengers felt nothing at first. The music continued playing. The wine kept flowing. Laughter echoed through the grand halls. No one noticed the ship inching closer and closer to disaster. And then it happened. At exactly 9:45 in the evening, a sound ripped through the belly of the ship. It was not thunder. It was not an explosion. It was the scream of metal being torn apart by ancient rock. A massive underwater reef had sliced through the hull like a blade through paper. In seconds, the impossible became real. Water began rushing into the lower decks with furious speed. The lights flickered once. Twice, then entire sections of the ship went dark. The music stopped mid-song. Glasses shattered on the floor. And for one frozen moment, 4,000 people held their breath. Then came the chaos. The ship began to tilt. Slowly at first, then faster. Tables slid across dining rooms. Chairs crashed into walls. People stumbled and fell as the floor beneath them became a slope. Screams filled the air. Children cried for their parents. Parents cried for their children. But here is the detail that haunts survivors to this day. For precious minutes after the collision, no alarm was raised. No announcement was made. The crew remained silent as the ship bled into the sea. Passengers wandered confused, asking each other what had happened. Some thought it was just a power failure. Others assumed it was a minor technical problem. The truth was far more terrifying. Deep below, seawater was flooding compartment after compartment. Engineers watched in horror as their instruments showed the impossible. The mighty Costa Concordia was dying, and she was dying fast. Finally, nearly an hour after the collision, the order came. Abandon ship. But by then, the ship had tilted so severely that half the lifeboats were useless. They hung at impossible angles, unreachable, mocking those who needed them most. Panic spread like wildfire. People pushed and shoved. Some jumped into the freezing black water. Others clung to railings, too terrified to move. In the darkness, heroes emerged. Crew members who stayed behind to help others. Strangers who carried elderly passengers on their backs. parents who shielded their children with their own bodies. In the face of death, the best of humanity shone through the terror. But not everyone showed courage that night. As the ship groaned and tilted further into the sea, as thousands struggled for survival, the captain made another decision. He left. While his passengers fought for their lives, he abandoned his post. He climbed into a lifeboat and reached the shore. When Coast Guard officers ordered him to return to his ship, he refused. His words that night would echo in courtrooms and history books forever. Meanwhile, on the dying ship, the nightmare continued. The water was bitterly cold. Those who fell in felt their muscles seize. Their lungs burned. Every second in that dark water was a battle against death itself. Some held onto floating debris. Others treaded water in complete darkness, praying for rescue boats to find them. On the tilting decks, passengers crawled along walls that had become floors. They broke windows. They climbed ropes. They did whatever it took to survive. Some helped strangers they had never met. Others prayed in languages from around the world. In those desperate hours, nationality meant nothing. Wealth meant nothing. Only life mattered. Rescue boats arrived from the island of Giglio. Local fishermen steered their small vessels through debris and fuel-slicked water. They pulled survivor after survivor from the freezing sea. Coast Guard helicopters circled above, their spotlights cutting through the darkness. It was a race against time and cold. By morning, the world awoke to an unbelievable sight. The Costa Concordia, this massive floating city, lay on her side in shallow water like a wounded whale. Her white hull faced the sky. Her decks, once filled with life and laughter, were now silent graveyards of floating furniture and shattered dreams. 32 souls did not survive that night. 32 families received news that shattered their worlds. 32 names were added to the long list of those claimed by the sea. Among the victims was a young couple on their honeymoon. They had saved for years to afford this trip. Their dreams of a life together ended in dark, cold water. There was a grandfather traveling with his daughter and grandson. He gave his life jacket to another passenger. He never made it out. A crew member, young and full of hope, stayed behind to help others. She was found days later, still holding the hand of an elderly passenger she tried to save. These were not just numbers. They were stories. They were lives. They were proof that tragedy does not discriminate. The investigation that followed revealed a chain of human failures: arrogance, negligence, panic, poor judgment, a captain who valued pride over safety, a crew unprepared for disaster, a system that failed when it was needed most. The shipwreck remained at Giglio for 2.5 years. Engineers from around the world worked to remove her. It became the largest maritime salvage operation in history. When they finally pulled the Costa Concordia upright, the world watched in silence. It was a ghost ship now, a rusted monument to one tragic night. But what lessons does this disaster whisper to those willing to listen? First, it reminds us of the danger of human arrogance. We build towers that touch the clouds. We create ships as big as cities. We conquer mountains and cross oceans. And in our pride, we sometimes forget that we are small. So very small. Nature does not bow to our technology. The sea does not fear our steel. Second, it teaches us about the sacred weight of responsibility. The captain of a ship, the leader of any group, carries souls in their hands. When that trust is betrayed, when that responsibility is abandoned, the consequences are devastating. Third, This tragedy shows us the true face of humanity in crisis. Amid the chaos and fear, ordinary people became heroes. Strangers saved strangers. Love defeated panic, even if just for moments. The worst night of their lives brought out the best in many hearts. And finally, this disaster reminds us of something deeper, something ancient, something that echoes through every storm and every calm sea. We are not in control. We plan our journeys. We book our tickets. We pack our bags with excitement. But we do not hold tomorrow in our hands. The one who created the oceans, who set the stars in their courses, who breathed life into every soul on that ship, he alone knows what each moment holds. This is not a message of fear. It is a message of peace. When we surrender our illusion of control, when we trust in the wisdom of the Creator, our hearts find rest. We stop gripping so tightly to things that were never ours to hold. We learn to be grateful for every safe arrival, every peaceful night, every ordinary moment that we so often take for granted. Those who survived the Costa Concordia speak of a strange gift hidden in their trauma. They say they learned to live differently. They hug their families tighter. They appreciate small joys. They understand that life is fragile and precious, and not to be wasted on bitterness or pride. The survivors carry their scars, some visible, many invisible, but they also carry wisdom earned in the darkest of waters. They know what matters. They know who they truly are when everything else is stripped away. The island of Giglio still remembers that night. Every January, candles are lit. Names are spoken. Prayers are offered for those who never made it home. The small community that welcomed terrified strangers into their homes became part of the story forever. And the sea, ancient and vast, continues its endless rhythm. It does not apologize. It does not explain. It simply is. A reminder that forces greater than ourselves govern this world. A humbling truth that humans have known since the first boat touched water. As you go about your day, perhaps walking on solid ground, perhaps far from any ocean, carry this story in your heart, not as a burden of fear, but as a gentle reminder. Be grateful for safety. Be humble before forces you cannot control. Be kind to those sailing their own storms. And always, always remember that every breath is a gift from the most merciful. The Costa Concordia was a ship of steel and ambition. But steel bends. Ambition fails. Only faith, only love, only the connection between a humble heart and its Creator remains unshaken by any storm. May your journeys, wherever they take you, be wrapped in safety and peace. May you never forget to thank the One who guides ships and souls through dark waters. And may the memory of those lost that cold January night remind us all to live with purpose, love deeply, and trust completely in the One who holds the seas in His hands. Peace be upon those who listen with open hearts.